Town of Ayer, Zoning Board of Appeals, Wednesday, December 21st, 2022, 6 p.m. Remote participation meeting agenda. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, in accordance with Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022, suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, OML, public bodies otherwise governed by the OML are temporarily relieved from the requirements that meetings be held in public places, open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures are taken to ensure public access to bodies' deliberations through adequate alternative means. This meeting will be live on Zoom. The public may participate remotely by joining Zoom, meeting ID number 857-9728-7177, or by calling 312-626-6799. For additional information about remote participation, please contact Samantha Benoit, Administrative Coordinator at sbenoit@ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8220, extension 114 prior to the meeting. We'll call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda for Wednesday, December 21st, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye and state your name, please.
Jessica Gino, aye.
Mike Gibbons, aye.
John Olusai. Ron, aye.
Sam Goodwin, aye. All right. That passed. First item on the agenda. Public hearing. Application for special permit, Evelio Herosis. Did I say that right?
Herreros.
Sorry?
Herreros. Close enough.
Okay. Is that you?
That's me. Yes.
Why? Oh, it just come up with a different name on the screen.
That's because I'm on my wife's iPad.
I see. Okay. All right. Ayer ZBA will conduct a remote public hearing at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, December 21st, 2022, regarding the application by Evelio Herreros for a property located at 8 Rosewood Ave, Ayer, Mass. Applicant seeking a special permit pursuant to Ayer zoning bylaws, section 5.2.1.10, table of use regulations, to permit a home occupation landscaping in a residential zone A2. For Zoom call-in information, please contact espenoit@ayer.mass.us or 978-772-8220, extension 114. Advertised December 2nd and December 9th, 2022 in the Shovel Valley Boys. All right, sir, you have the floor. Let's hear what you got to say.
Well, I was just, I want to, get the special permit so I can operate my small landscaping business out of the house. I currently only have one truck and one trailer as a daily use during the season. I do have another dump trailer that I use as a backup just in case the other one, has a flat tire or anything of that matter. I do have another truck that I use for my personal use. I got two mowers, two commercial mowers, two plows, and that's about it. So I'm looking into eventually down the road when I can grow and make some capital, find a place, commercial place where I can get out and have all my stuff that it's into the business over there. But at the moment, like I said, I don't have the money for it, the investment to go to a bigger place, a commercial place.
You have been operating in violation since at least October. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. You were notified October 26th that you can't do this. So is that why? How long have you been operating out of your house like that?
We started on let's see, 2018. I got the permits. I got the, I did went to the town hall and advised them and told them that I was going to be operating from home, which they give me the okay. And they told me that, as far as wasn't stopping traffic and, it wasn't, a huge company, bunch of trucks and trailers going in and out, it was fine.
What do you mean they gave you the okay? Does that mean you got a business permit or what?
Is that what it was?
I'm sorry, my name is Dilma, I'm his wife and we run the business together. It was basically the permit that you fill at City Hall, you pay $25. And we started with a truck and a trailer, which is basically what we have now. What happened in October was that I was having some work in the house, installing solar panels and redoing our backyard. And stuff got moved around to the front. And when they came to do the inspection, they saw that there was way too many things out in the front of the house.
On the side of the house, it was,
Yeah.
not on the front of the house. We have a space on the side, which, when they were doing all this work with the solar panels, I got stuff, excuse me, out of the basement so they can put the solar panels, because they couldn't install them the first day, to the side of the house. And that, when they came to inspect the panels, they saw all the stuff that I had on the side, which was, tarps and shovels and, thing of that matter. So that's when we, a couple of days later, we got notified that, we need to get into this, new special permit.
Carly, you had your hand up?
Yeah, so I just want to explain to the committee, Mr. Chair, that we cleaned up that process up at Town Hall. I think that you may remember we've discussed this a few times.
Yep.
When folks would come in for a business certificate, there was a no zoning check being done. We've since cleaned that up. So when the applicants would have come, had come to Town Hall after, we would have sent it up to Charlie to take a look at. That was not the practice prior. I would say to probably 2019 is when we cleaned that up. So that's probably how they got their business certificate.
Okay. Seems to me we've been down this road once or twice before. You remember those, Mike?
I do, yeah. We had the one over by Sandy Pond either
Yeah.
last year or maybe
on
a year
Wright
and a half
Road.
ago. Right
Yeah,
road.
Yeah, and there was one before that, wasn't there? I thought there were two that we had. One of them was quite a ways back. I remember that was out. Oh Christ, it was out in the sticks someplace. I remember
The
that.
other one was the garage out on almost to Littleton out there. The
Is that the one
garage.
it was? Yeah, right.
Yeah, the garage, because he was in business already and everything was already,
Oh, Welch
So we-
Auto.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
yeah, and we just said, okay, but that, when you're done, there's no more permit there. Remember,
Yeah, and the other one we did was Sandy Pond, and we denied that.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to hear what you guys got to think.
But just a reminder, we have to take each application based on their own merit.
I
right,
understand.
right, yeah.
Oh, no, I understand that. I'm just reminding them that we've been down this road before and it's been yes and no. So it's 50-50 shot.
Yeah, and I think too, because, we've upped our hours. We've now added our part-time building inspector who's working 20 hours a week specifically on zoning enforcement. I think we're going to see probably more of these come down the line.
Then we'll deal with them.
Yep.
Okay, so I have a question, because this applies to more than just this hearing. But this letter on the zoning violation says that he has the right to appeal. So should we really be going through a right to appeal process, or should we just be dealing with this permit as its own request.
The right to appeal is not to appeal. I'm sorry. Carly, you want to take a shot at this?
Yeah, so he could, you know, the right to appeal, he could find a definition or something in the bylaw that says it is allowed there. We're gonna hear an administrative appeal tonight. Or instead of, you can look for an appeal, or you can seek relief. That's what this would be. You know, he's seeking a special permit, which is, it's allowed with a special permit.
Okay, so it's okay to go ahead and do this hearing
Yeah,
rather than saying, well, you really need to appeal the hearing from.
Well, I think he wants to appeal the letter. The decision on the letter.
Well,
That's why he's here. That's the appeal.
he's just applying for a permit.
Well,
You know, he-
if we give him the permit, that sort of negates the letter, doesn't it?
yeah, that he's here because of the letter from the zoning department,
Right.
Okay,
the building department.
okay, then.
Mike?
Sure. So, I'm sorry, Mr. Herreros,
Yes, sir.
the truck that you mentioned that's a personal truck, do you have commercial plates on it or just regular old red plates like the rest of us?
I have commercial plates on it.
All right.
We were advised to, because of the size of the truck, they said that it was better off. As
Okay.
commer-
Okay.
That's why, because we had 1 or 2 years that the main truck broke down in the middle of a winter storm. So when I gifted it to him, it was for personal use, basically, but that time he had to use it as a backup. So
Okay.
we do the commercial aspect, but it's more for personal use.
Okay. How many employees do you guys have?
None.
Okay.
I operate by
Uh,
myself.
Okay. So my thoughts on this one, guys, is that I did see the letter from Mr. Warren, I believe, Gary Warren, I think it was.
Yeah.
And he was obviously in support of it. And like Carly said, I do think over the next 6 months to a year, we're going to see a lot more of these now that we have an employee, on the town staff that's going to be looking at this specifically. I generally don't have an issue with this one. I would like to hear from other neighbors if they are on the call. But I would say this. I think this business, as we're looking at it, as it's presented in the letter from Mr. Herreros, it's rapidly outgrowing the space that they're in. And so one of the things that I would be interested in doing, as we're likely going to see more of these in the coming months, is to see if it's possible to condition these with time in mind, right? So say we granted this for 2 years, and then Mr. Wallace, the new gentleman in zoning enforcement, goes out in 2 years and says, Mr. Herreros, you now have 3 commercial trucks. Or if he goes above and beyond what he's currently at, at that point, I really do think Mr. Herreros will need to find space. And in town, we have plenty of it. Right on Park Street, there's a number of garages that you could rent. I know that across from Welch Auto, there's a contractor yard. So it's not like we don't have space in town. That being said, I do appreciate the fact that Mr. Herreros has gone through the process the right way. He applied for his license, and I figured that's what triggered it when I read this letter, that when he switched from a DBA to a corporation, it got picked up. If he had just stayed as a DBA, he probably would have been able to operate, well into it. And I know that the solar panel thing, maybe they caught it there, but 50-50 on that. I don't have a huge issue with this. And again, I think the letter from Mr. Warren kind of influenced my decision. And, but like I said, going forward, if we can condition these with a time constraint on them, I think that would be something we should look into.
I don't know if we can do that. Can we, Carly?
I was gonna recommend perhaps conditioning the number of pieces of equipment instead of the time. I honestly don't know.
Doesn't that already exist?
Well, it says 3, it says up to 3 vehicles, only 1 commercial is what it says. But the way I read read this package is he's already got 3 trucks.
No, I don't. I have 2 trucks only.
We have, yes.
He has two
perhaps-
trucks. One of them is, the third vehicle is his wife's.
Yes, the
Well-
third vehicle is my wife, which doesn't, it has nothing to do with the work that I do.
That's got red plates on it, right?
Yes.
But there are
Okay.
also 2 trailers and a hydro seeding tank.
Yeah,
Those
I know.
are the 2 trailers that I mentioned at the beginning. One is for for like everyday use in the season, and the other one is as a backup if something goes wrong with my with the one that I usually use. I have the other one, so I don't get stuck with anything. I do have I believe it's like 250 or 300 gallon tank for hydro seeding, which is it's inside the garage. And once again, here we are with my wife looking into try to get this special permit. If it's for a year or 2 years, it will be great. I'm really, like I said, I'm really looking into expand as a company, eventually get some employees and grow in the towns around here and get a commercial space where I don't have, I can have everything without having any issues. As it is at the moment, I mean, our property is maintained properly. It's I have no trash. There is no issues with parking on the street. I do not park on the street, whether it's the truck, my personal truck, or the company truck. There is no issue. So, however, and that's all we're really looking for. We are, hardworking people that, we just want an opportunity, for the next year or 2, so we can, make some capital and find a place where we can, have, the equipment if we can have it here at the place. It's completely understandable if the rules from the town, don't allow to have a commercial, a business running out of your house. We understand that. And like I said, that's all I'm looking for. I'm looking for a year or 2 so I can, like I said, grow capital and then, find something where I can, have, all my stuff.
What do you think, Jess?
I had actually written down in my notes asking about a time limit as well. So when Mike said that, I was like, yes. It's a difficult economy. I don't want to undercut a business that's starting up. Same time, I'm sort of uncomfortable with a very clearly residential neighborhood allowing something long-term like this to take place. So I would be in favor of, if we could possibly put a 1 or 2 year time limit, I would be in favor of that. No, the town planner was worried about setting a precedent, but
Yeah.
it's been made clear. We have to look at each one by one. So there's not an issue of precedence.
One more thing that I want to share with you guys. I'm completely aware of me operating at my house. It's a residential zone, it's a residential neighborhood. And, I keep, I'm not running my machines at, 8 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, 5 o'clock in the morning, pissing people off and that, that type of thing. I understand that, I wouldn't like something like that being done next to me if, my neighbor had, something going on as a business. But on the same token, if, somebody was next to me on the same boat that I am and they were respectful, I will definitely not have any issues with, with them operating. So on that matter, I do, keep respect to the neighbors, and I make sure that like I said, we're not running machines or starting machines early in the morning or super late at night.
Yeah. So yeah, and with the Wright Road property for the same issue, we did have a huge number of neighborhood complaints. We don't have any here. We have 1 letter of strong support. So if we could put a time limit that would give Mr. Herreros adequate time to keep his business going, but then know that you have to move on to a larger setting, I'd be happy with that.
Absolutely, completely understand that.
Can I-
I don't know if I'm comfortable with the time limit, only because I don't know if it's binding. You know, I don't know if we have the authority to do that, but I do know that it says, you know, that there can be up to 3 vehicles on the property, one of them personal. And I'm okay with that as long as you don't have any more increase, because I looked at the property and there's really not a lot of room there.
No, there's not.
So if, you know, if we just say you have to maintain per the zoning law, the number of vehicles, then I don't have that issue.
It's not some, you know, when you look at it, when you step back and look at it, John, it's not just the number of vehicles that are there, it's the amount of equipment that they're along supporting the vehicles. You know, I mean, he's got a substantial amount of equipment there. And if he's going to grow like he thinks he wants to grow, he's going to run out of real estate real quick.
But he knows that. He
And
knows
as
that.
soon as that, you know, whenever that happens, you know, like let's say at the end of, you know, because this is seasonal. I don't work all year round. You know, it's you know, April or May to November once all the fall cleanups are done. Let's say by next year, I you know, all of a sudden, excuse me, I you know, we grow, you know, big, and you know, we have no place where to put stuff over here. Trust me, I don't want my kids to be tripping on plows and trailers and, you know, that type of thing. You know, I like I said to you guys, I completely understand that, you know, it's not only, you know, if there is laws and codes and this and this and that, not to run a business from home. I completely understand. I just, you know, that's all I'm asking for. I'm asking for a year or two where I can, you know, make some capital and move out. And if that means you guys have to inspect it here and there to make sure that, you know, I don't have 4 trailers up there and 4 trucks, you know, you guys are more than welcome to do that.
Ron?
But do I understand we cannot impose a time limit on this?
No, that's not what you understand. Carly, we can we?
I honestly don't know the answer. We've never put a time limit on a special permit.
I'm going to.
I was just looking that up, and in the cases for Massachusetts, in the case of a variance, which is sort of similar, the board can attach conditions. There's no express statutory provision permitting the zoning board to place conditions on the granting of a variance, but reasonable conditions where necessary to preserve the spirit of the ordinance can be attached. I would agree with Mike. Let's try it.
Yeah, and I want to caution that a special permit is different than a variance.
I know, but just the general spirit of that is, can we attach time considerations? The other thing would be if there's an expansion, like an increase in the number of vehicles, could we put a limit on that? Because if the business is taking off and expanding, we could, with more vehicles or whatever, then the special permit would be invalid if we were giving it for a certain number of vehicles.
That's why
Vehicles are limited right now.
Right. So
Yes.
But you could put that in your conditions also.
What?
The number of vehicles.
Yeah,
Well,
because
that's in the bylaw right now.
Agreed, but I'm just saying to make it clear, it's a
Yeah.
condition of the special permit.
Mr. Diskin, something I can do for you, sir?
Yeah, don't have any particular opinion, and I appreciate your discussion, but I happen to have the Ayer zoning bylaws right here. And I can read under your special permit, section 3.4, item D, which are conditions. Special permits may be granted with such reasonable conditions, comma, safeguards, comma, or limitations on time or use, comma, including performance guarantees as the special permit granting authority, you guys, may deem necessary to serve the purpose of this bylaw, period. It doesn't say whether the time is time of day or length of time. So it just uses the word time, but I'm reading it right out of the ZBA.
That's a pretty broad brush. Yeah,
I think you
Thank you.
probably have the ability to put a time limit on it.
I
for
think,
length of
I'm
time.
thinking so, yes. So that being said, thank you for that. That being said, what do we feel is adequate? A year?
May I add something before you guys take a decision on that? We were just, well, my husband specifically was just a victim of identity theft. So we have blocked it for a year while we try to fix it. So there won't be any increase on equipment or anything for another year because we can't use basically his credit. So if we could, if you guys are willing to give us the temporary permit, at least, can you please consider the fact that his identity has been stolen and it would affect us getting into a commercial space within a year? If that's possible.
I don't think we can do a temporary.
Okay.
I think we just, it's either yes or no, and if it's a yes, then we're gonna put a limitation, a time limitation on it.
Well,
Well, I would,
essentially, you are doing a temporary. It may be a 2-year temporary or a 1-year temporary.
I would think a 2-year time limit because it's not going to grow that fast in a year.
All right. Make a motion, John.
Well, Mr. Chair, I think
Yes,
if there's
ma'am.
other abutters we should hear from, if there are any, I don't know.
Well, we had asked before, there were
I don't
none.
think, I don't recall
Not
that.
formally.
Yeah, Mike asked.
It looks like there's a Gary Warren is on the screen,
He's the one that
Asking to
wrote the
speak.
letter, yes.
and he's on the screen with his asking to speak.
It says thumbs up. I thought you were supposed to wave it.
Oh,
Don't they wave their hand?
oh. I get confused. Thumbs up or wave hand. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to throw it out there in case there was anyone.
No, Mike had asked for that earlier. I'm sorry. Okay.
Is there anybody else on the call who would like to speak on this application?
Okay, John?
Okay, I make a motion to approve the application regarding the property located at 8 Rosewood Ave, Ayer, Mass. For a special permit pursuant to 5.2.1.0 to permit home occupation, landscape, and residential zone with a expiration of 24 months.
Somebody second that?
Second,
All in favor signify by saying aye. State your name, please.
Jessica Gino, aye.
Mike Gibbons, aye.
On LSI,
Ron DiFilippo, aye.
Sam Goodwin, aye. You have your 2 years, sir.
Great. And when will they expire? When does it start running? Today?
Right now. Clock's
Right now,
running.
and it gets expired in 2 years.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I once again, to all of you, we really appreciated, me and my wife. We will once again keep ourselves respectful to our neighbors and to the town and to anybody that is around the property. Thank you very much. And if once again, if you guys want to reach out to us or check the place out and make sure that everything is, it's properly maintained, you guys are more than welcome to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I make a motion, we close the public hearing for 8 Rosewood Ave.
Second,
All those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Jessica Gino, aye.
Mike Gibbons, aye.
on LSI,
Ron DiFilippo, aye.
Sam Goodwin, aye. All right. Next item on the agenda.
Thank you.
ZBA. You're welcome, sir. ZBA will conduct a remote public hearing at 6:30 PM. I know it said 6:10, but we ran over. Wednesday, December 21st, 2022, regarding application by Teddy's Honey Hunt for property located at 27 Harvard Road, Ayer, Mass. Applicant is seeking a special permit pursuant to Ayer zoning bylaws, section 9.5.5, part 1, to allow 3 signs on the existing canopy. For Zoom or call-in information, please contact Espanoit at ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8220, extension 114. Advertised December 2 and December 9, the Neshoba Valley Voice. Now we have two things on this site, so we'll take them one at a time. This was amended. I don't know what the amendment is. The amendment reads, Ayer ZBA will conduct a remote public hearing 6:10 PM regarding Teddy's Honey Hut for property located 27 Harvard Road.
Sam,
I don't see the difference.
Sam
What's the
Benoit,
amendment for?
Yeah,
what's that?
it was originally marked as a special permit and it got changed to a variance. And
Oh,
it's
I
written in
see.
the paper. Yeah,
I didn't even see that. Okay.
that is literally, it's identical except for that one word.
Oh, yeah, okay, thank you. All right. All right. Mr. Maxon. You're
Yes.
up. You're
Can you
up.
hear, can you
Yes,
hear
sir.
me?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me? Did I unmute?
You're unmuted. We can hear you. Go ahead.
That building was a gas station for almost a century, as far as I can remember.
Yep.
So when I inherited it from Alltown, my original thought was to tear the building down, or at least remove the canopy so it didn't look like a gas station. But then when my contractor, we looked at it structurally, and you couldn't remove the canopy because it was part of the whole structure of the building. So then we said, what's next? This canopy is ugly. It's going to continue to look like a gas station. How can we tell people that this is now a honey hut? So I had the artist draw up those decals, and we put one on the front of the building, and it looked nice. We said, yeah, this is pretty good. Let's put them on the other two surfaces to sort of tone down that oppressive canopy look. And I thought, this is good. This will help people recognize that this is a place to sit by honey, give them a chance if they're coming down the roads, either way, to put on their turn signals and without hitting the brakes and going, oh my God, there it is. And I wasn't aware that I was in a violation of a sign permit until I started receiving cease and desist orders from the building department. And I wasn't able to react immediately because there was a far greater issue, the issue of the zoning.
We'll
which
get
was
into
in-
that. We'll get into that after this, but we're going to do one at a time.
You remember that one? So the town voted unanimously on two separate town meetings to make sure that the place was zoned general business. And then at this point, it made the application for the special permit for the 3 signs practical. That's it.
Could
What do
I
you guys
ask,
think?
could I ask one question?
Yes.
For something like this, what is the functional difference between in the change from this being a special permit to a variance?
Well, yes,
Because it's only the
I
signage.
spoke to Lawyer Gibbons about this. How did you manage to get 34 signs across the street on Global? And he said, because part of the hearings, we applied for a variance. I said, oh, so you think I've taken the wrong road? He said, not necessarily. You have to, it's really a decision up to the ZBA. If they feel that the special permit works in this particular application, then proceed with it. But if they don't feel it works, then ask for a continuance, and we'll go the other road which is a variance. So, I mean, I didn't know which road to take, to tell you the truth. And I thought, because I've been on the ZBA in Harvard for a number of years, I thought that the special permit, because we've had sign issues in Harvard as well, and it always came through with a special permit. Remember when they had the video store? There was a big issue with Gabe Valenti over whether or not the posters were considered signs. And we solved that problem by overruling Valenti's decision that posters on the windows were not signs. So I opted to take the special permit route because I had, like Yogi Berra said, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. I didn't know which one to take. So I took this one.
John,
So
you got your ZBA rules?
What's that?
And I was talking to John Ellis.
Well, I was looking at the violation because there was a violation back in April. And that said that he had to have a permit.
Yes,
Under section 5.2, table of regulation. Wait a minute. 9.5.1a, no sign shall be erected on the exterior of any building or any land until a building inspector has issued a sign permit. So it's not a special permit, it's the sign permit that he has to get.
So allowed there is 2 signs, as I understand it from Charlie. So he's asking to have a third.
That's correct. That's the way I remember it. Just remember reading it in our bylaws.
So he is Sam, help me out. Is it Sam Benoit? He is asking for a variance, correct?
Yes, you should be asking for a variance. It was originally submitted as a special permit. When I brought it to Charlie to look at as well before I wrote everything up, he said it needed to be a variance. And I was told to, and I was recommended to amend it to be a
Okay,
variance.
so here's the deal. The deal is it's a variance because it's 3 signs.
Yes.
But on top of that, once you get the variance to put up the signs, you still need the permit sign. That does not go away.
Yes.
So he still has to go back and resolve this issue of this violation because he will still need to get a permit.
No, not if we give them a variance.
No, the permit has been,
The variance only allows the number of signs, but the sign itself has to be permitted.
Yep.
Yeah,
Right,
so
so Charlie
he'll
will have to check the sign to make sure it meets all the regulations in the
That's all
bylaw.
I'm saying.
So-
So that happens automatically.
Right.
Mhm.
So he'll check the size and, all that other stuff.
there is a permit been filed, and it was acknowledged by, in May, I believe, by the woman that's now in the conservation department down on the first floor. But she signed the permit. I wanted to have a record that it was being received.
So it's
And it-
likely on hold because we're going through this process right now.
Yes. That original application is still in the office.
He
Um,
applied for a sign permit.
Yes.
Now, did you apply for the sign permit after you installed the signs on the canopy?
That
Yes,
is
you did.
correct, because I wasn't aware that this so-called, what I thought was decorative art would be the building department would say that's a sign.
Well,
But I
it's
didn't,
a
I'm not
statute, it
arguing,
advertises your business.
I'm not arguing the fact that I'm not arguing the fact that it's a sign or not a sign. I'm just trying to tell you that the three surfaces of the canopy look better with these with this, whether you call them a sign or whatever, it just looks better. I'm just telling you,
Well, I agree with that.
you know? And
I do agree with that.
the only other option would be for to white them out, and then people go along, go say, where's this honey hut? And, oh, there it is. And then all of a sudden they pop on the brakes and some trailer truck runs into the back of them. And then you have yourself a real problem. So these signs you've used, I sent you all this stuff. You go down by the Rotary and head south, you could see this. It gives the driver at least 400 yards advance notice to put on the turn signal. Same thing the other way. They come down from Harvard. They're not going 20 miles an hour. They're going 40 miles an hour. And there's no third lane. The trucks stop. People got their blinkers on. I think it's really important, not only for looks, but for safety of the motorist. Because
Yes,
I don't think you've ever stood there at any amount of time and see how much activity is going on with that gas station across the street. It's
Okay.
incredible.
Jess?
Okay, so let
Jess?
us move on.
Yeah.
Mr. Diskin?
Yeah, I have no particular problem with the actual signage as it looks, but I want to refer to the comment from Alan Manoyan that this should be going for site plan review with the planning board. And I believe Mr. Diskin does have his hand up.
So I'll wait for you guys.
Is there something you wanted to contribute to this?
I was going to ask you, Mr. Chairman, just for clarification through Mr. Maxon. First of all, there were traffic studies done on that road when the gas station went in that he may not be aware of. That's a clarification, but I thought I misunderstood somewhat the advertisement regarding the 3 canopy locations, because there's additional signage there already out front. Isn't there another sign that has 3 or 4 tenants' names on it that stands alone that he reused from the existing gas station, took down the word, whatever was up there, and replaced it with other signage? So in fact, we have at least 4 names with the honey at.
All right, thank you.
3 on the canopy that he's talking about getting a variance for, and 1 that exists out on the road. So I'd find it hard to believe that people couldn't see that signage coming down the street. It's a great explanation, but not sure it
Thank you.
holds much.
Mike?
I agree with Ken. I drive by this sign twice a day at least. Frankly, I don't take much issue with it. I take issue with the fact that they were just installed. I'll be frank when I say that. But I don't have many concerns with this application. It's not as if it's, throwing off a ton of light or overly distracting. The gas station's right across the street, and that's lit up like Christmas every night. So I don't have a huge issue with this application.
Thank you. Jess?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an issue with the 3 signs. My question again is just, is this our purview or should this be site plan review with planning board?
No, it's a variance, so it's ours.
Variance, so, okay, so that changes it.
That's the way I'm looking at it. It's gonna
Okay.
be, it's a variance.
Okay, then I don't have a problem with this particular sign.
Ron?
How can we have a variance when we don't even have a permit to have the sign in the first place? How can we
No.
make a variance on
He's got
a non-existing permit?
No, the permit is on, the application for the permit is in the office. So we're in a gray area right now, to be quite candid, I think.
So,
You-
Mr.
you
Chair, if I
applied-
may.
He applied for the permit.
Yeah.
No, had not been granted. There's a letter from the, where did I see that? Did he have a letter from Charlie? Or is that the other one?
That's the other.
Yes, it's actually a couple of them.
No, that's on
So-
the other, that's on the other one, John. I don't think it's this one.
Yeah,
Okay. So anyway, I think it's a variance. Carly?
Yeah, so he came in for a permit. Charlie saw that would be the 3rd sign on the canopy, which is why he had him go through this process to allow for 3.
Okay,
We grant the variance tonight, then he reviews the sign permit application again, and if it meets all other criteria in the zoning bylaw, then they can grant it. The only
Square,
thing-
square foot and everything else, yes.
Right, the only thing with like Charlie's not able to because there only can be two. So
Right,
this will allow for the third, and then it's gonna meet all the other requirements for Charlie to grant the permit.
okay. Mike, you want to make a motion?
Sure.
Is it public
Uh,
input?
Public input.
So basically, what's the motion going to be?
Well, let us
You'll,
make it.
you'll hear it when I make it,
Stand
Mr.
by.
Maxon.
Okay.
But prior to that, I do, we should probably see if there is any public comment on this one. Hearing none.
Well, there was one from an abutter, but it was never posted to you, but I sent it to the office from Lorden, who's an abutter.
Warden
And she-
Oil?
Yes, the widow.
Oh, okay.
She owns the water out behind the honey hut. And she said she doesn't have any objection.
All
I
right,
think I sent that on to the office,
all right.
but it
thank you.
wasn't posted.
All
Okay.
right.
I make a motion to approve a special permit.
Oh,
Pursuant,
variance.
I'm sorry, to approve a variance pursuant to Air zoning bylaw, section 9.5.5, part 1, to allow for 3 signs on the existing canopy.
Second,
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Jessica Gino, I.
Mike Gibbons, aye.
On the other side,
Ron DeFilippo, nay.
Sam Goodwin, aye. Thank you, Ron. You have your variance on that, Mr. Maxim.
Well, thank you very much.
I make a motion,
Thank
we
you very
close
much.
that public hearing.
Second,
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Jessica Gino, I.
Mike Gibbons, aye.
John
Ron
outside.
DeFilippo, aye.
Sam Goodwin, aye. All right. Moving right along. Ayer ZBA will conduct a remote public hearing at 6:45 PM. Wednesday, December 21st, 2022, regarding application by Theodore Maxent for a property located 27 Harvard Road, Ayer, Mass. Applicant is seeking administrative appeal to overturn the Ayer zoning building department classification of flag welding under section 6.2 in the Ayer zoning bylaw table of use and classify instead under section 5.9. For Zoom call-in information, please contact Espinoit at ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8220, extension 114. Advertised December 2nd and December 9th, the Neshoba Valley Voice. As I understand it, sir, you have a welder and a fabricator on those premises. Is that correct?
No,
No?
no, he's not a fabricator.
No. If he's welding material together, he's fabricating it. That's a fact. I do this for a living.
Okay. Flag welding used to be on Fitchburg Road.
Yeah, we know where they were. They were over where they're going to build the 40B. now.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when they sold that property, don't forget he'd been there for 34 years in a GB district.
Yep.
So when I said, when Flaggy asked if he could move into the section in the back, I thought, well, why not? I mean, you've been here for 34 years. So one would assume, from my point of view, that since he'd been in a GB district for 34 years, nothing's changed.
If you were on a ZBA before, you would realize that would predate the zoning bylaws. So it was grandfathered in. He is not grandfathered in this place now. There is no grandfathering to the honey hut. So let's just. get right past that.
I'm not talking about grandfathering. I'm talking about the classification of the use. And I'm saying that he's 5.9 instead of 6.2. We're not talking about.
I don't agree with that.
Yeah, we're not talking about grandfathering or any of that. We're just talking about did or did not the zoning department misclassify flag welding.
I don't believe so.
Now, let me tell you that a lot of Flag's work is not on the site. he constantly goes to Pepe or the oil plant or the shrimp plant, but he does keep his trucks there. And he does keep his supplies and tools there. And occasionally someone shows up to get the lawnmower fixed or a chair welded. I don't really consider that to be manufacturing. So that's why I think, in my opinion, that 5.9 is an acceptable definition of what John Flagg does. Now, that's an opinion of mine. Obviously, the building inspector does not agree. And so therefore,
let me ask you one question.
Yes.
Does he strike an arc in that building? Yes or no?
Yes.
End of
I can't
discussion.
say, yes, he does. When someone brings something to be welded, he strikes an arc. Just
Fine.
as if an auto body person who brings in your car would strike an arc. Lots of people strike arcs in what I call a service business. Again, it's a definition. He's not a fabricator in the sense of the, well,
Yes,
that's
he
hard.
is.
Yeah, okay. When
Yes, he is.
I went to Google and you have it as part of your record, I asked Google, what is a fabricator? And then they listed all the machines that a fabricator has to have. And I trust you have this document in front of you. Has to have a shear, has to have a plate roller, has to have an iron worker. And that's Google's opinion.
Well, here's
Not
our
mine.
opinion. If you
So-
take two pieces of metal and put them together and melt it, it's fabrication. You're fabricating something from nothing. I don't care about shears. I don't care about presses. If Google, I don't care what Google says. We're going by what our bylaw says. And I tend to agree with what our zoning says, what our zoning bylaw says. You should not have welders, a weld shop in that honey hut. That's my opinion.
Well,
Then you can, we'll listen to what the rest of the board has to say.
that's why I'm in front of the ZBA for your opinion.
Yes, sir. Mike,
Not just the building inspector's opinion. If you all agree with the building inspector, then I have to take a different route. I have to withdraw this application and submit for, what would I have to submit for?
You have to work it out with the planning board.
Yeah.
Site plan review.
Yeah, special permit by planning board. That's the other route I could take.
That's
you can withdraw it now, call it even, because if we get to the vote part, there is no withdrawal.
I understand that. So can I get some opinion from the other members, or does this have to
No.
be, is this a unanimous decision that's required?
Yes,
Well, it's a super majority because it's a variance, but
4 out of 5.
correct.
So I think what Mr. Maxon is saying, just to get a sense of how other board members are feeling, if it's not just you that disagrees, he wants to see if other board members disagree.
I had already started that process, Carly. I had asked Mike, but I don't know if he heard.
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry, Sam.
Mr. Maxim was going.
But I'll be brief. Mr. Diskin has his hand up. Go ahead, Ken.
Ken,
Yeah,
what's up?
This is to Mike for clarification and through Carly and the chair. I thought administrative appeal needed a 4/5 majority of the planning board. But it's this is an administrative appeal. It's not a variance or a special permit. That's the way I understand it.
Yes.
You're right,
it's-
Ken. You're
Yes,
right,
Yes.
Ken.
it's
And I
the
believe
reverse.
that's a 4/5 majority, having had to go before you with the same thing once.
You are correct.
So
Thank
that
you.
was through you, Mr. Chair, just for clarification.
Mike?
So Sam, I'm with you on this one. I agree with Charlie. I agree with Alan, and I agree with Mark, the town staff who deal with this day in, day out.
Yep.
I really think the right place for this is site plan review with the planning board, and frankly, I agree with Charlie's opinion on this. So that's where I stand.
Thank you. Jess?
That would be,
So-
that would also be my position, site plan review, planning board.
So
Ron?
the recommendation is
Wait a
to
minute, please.
withdraw this,
Hold on.
not to ask for a continuance, to withdraw it and go the other route.
Well, let me finish
Special
polling.
permit, but-
Let me finish polling. You wanted to hear what they had to say, so I'm gonna let you hear what they had to say.
Okay,
Ron?
I'm in agreement with you, 2 or 3 already.
All right. John?
Same, same thing.
They are,
So-
Mr. Maxon.
Sam, the only thing I would say is that I would, opposed to taking a vote, I would allow Mr. Maxon to withdraw
Yeah,
his
exactly.
application,
No,
versus denying it.
Right.
Can I ask a quick question? Because
Sure.
I guess I'm lost. If it's not a permitted use at the property, then why go for a special permit? I'm lost.
Not a special permit.
because you can go for a special permit under under 5.9. It said, if you look at the bylaw, it says that this is allowed by special permit through the planning board, not through you, but through the planning board. But then we require site plan approval. So the first step is to get a site plan, then go before the planning board for site plan approval, and then go for the special permit by the planning board. It says right in the bylaw, SPB.
Okay, thank you.
Do we need to vote to accept his withdrawal?
No. Do we?
We do,
Okay.
yeah.
Are you gonna withdraw, Mr. Maxon, or are you gonna let us vote on it as it is?
Well, it looks like the chips are down against this particular reversal of the zoning board's decision. So do I have a choice? I don't think so.
Straight up.
Well,
So,
interestingly enough,
so
this is
what-
what we're talking about. You want us to overturn. So we have to take a vote on whether we overturn it or not.
Yeah.
that's, yes. What I'm asking you to do is to reverse his decision that flag is 6.2, and that correctly he should be placed in 5.9, which is an allowed use. in the
Again, that's
general-
your opinion. Yes, ma'am. Yes, Carly.
No,
So,
that's, that's-
he can withdraw before, you don't have to take a vote if he withdraws first. And I think that's what it sounds like he's looking to do.
Well,
but-
he was talking about taking it to the planning board. Okay, I get that.
So
But
if he
but
withdraws
that still, that
tonight,
doesn't change the administrative appeal, or he just does away with it. That,
yeah, so
where
it
does
just,
that go? How does that work?
so
Well,
if
I'm talking
Charlie,
to her, sir. Thank you.
if Charlie sees that, Charlie will find out tomorrow that you did not overturn his decision, then they'll make sure that Mr. Maxon files with the planning board, forthwith, and get the proper permits from the planning board, the site plan
Okay.
and then the special permit. If he doesn't do that, I mean, that's when we have property enforcement means, same as any other property that's not under zoning compliance.
Thank you.
So Sam, my only other question here,
Yeah,
would it make more sense to affirm Charlie's decision? Because if he
not
goes through
not if he's gonna withdraw.
okay,
But in the past, we have voted to accept the withdrawal with no.
without prejudice.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, looks
Mr.
like-
Diskin,
What do you need, Ken?
Excuse me, through the chair.
Yes, sir.
So if he withdraws without prejudice, that means that Charlie's decision regarding whatever violations he has at the moment is in play. That's it. The decision
Correct.
stands.
that's correct. Withdraw without, with
Oh,
prejudice. Yeah,
put it
that's,
Without
the-
prejudice.
that's the correct language.
if
Is
you
that your
withdraw-
choice, sir?
No, I haven't finished. Sorry, excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Through you to Mr. Maxent. Do you agree,
Say
Mr. Maxent, then that you're in if you withdraw without prejudice, do you then agree that you're in violation of a building standard or a zoning standard at this point in the zoning bylaws? And as a result of that, you will cease and desist immediately what you are doing that's in violation of that. I'm asking you directly through the chair.
Well,
Or you're just going to keep doing what you're doing, which is nothing? That's my second question.
I think we're beating a dead horse here, but thank you for the question.
so then I could ask for a continuance because my wife and I depart, as we do every year, for 3 months. where we stay nice and warm and toasty. I've already spoken to Tom Gibbons about this, and he said that he would have to take over for me. So if I ask for continuance, then he would come in and ask legally. He probably knows legally better than you and better than I do as to what the next step is. But it looks like, from what I can hear tonight, that the next step is to get a site plan and go before the planning board.
Do you
But
wish
in the mean,
do you wish to withdraw?
but what's that?
Do you wish to withdraw this administrative?
Mr. Gibbons said to ask for continuance and that he knows better the proper channel to take.
Do you wish to withdraw this appeal for administrative overturn?
I'm asking for a continuance to the next meeting and then let Mr. Gibbons handle it. Because as you said, if I withdraw, flag's immediately in violation. You just said that. And what are you going to do with this gentleman? Say, okay, you're out? What? You tell me.
What are you going to do with him? He's your tenant.
That's right. And
so you have to talk, you have to deal with it. You created it. You have to deal with it. We didn't create this. You did. Now you got two choices, the way I see it. You withdraw it or we vote on it, one or the other. I'm not inclined to continue it.
But if I ask to continue it, you won't continue it.
Let's take a.
It gives me a chance to have Mr. Gibbons sorted out. It gives Flaggy a chance to do something instead of just all of a sudden imposing fines and throwing him out. Morally, this is incorrect. Really.
We did not create this. Did we? No.
Well, it depends on your opinion of what he does. In my opinion, he's 5.9. So that's, and you're saying no. So what are you going to do?
Mike?
At this point, I would feel more comfortable affirming Charlie's decision than going with the withdrawal.
Jess?
Say that again. I'm hard of hearing. Would you please repeat that?
Sure. I think at this point, I'd like to affirm the building commissioner's opinion because I think a withdrawal might send the wrong idea. I disagree with your application, and I agree with the building inspector.
He wants a continuance. What do you think?
No.
All right, then I withdraw. I have no choice.
But
All right.
withdrawal still means that,
Withdrawal means he accepts Charlie's
yeah,
letters as is. All right. He wanted to withdraw. Although, yes, Carly?
So I would take, have someone make a motion. I think you're in the middle of that. Sorry.
Yes, I was getting there.
Sorry.
You want to make a motion, Mike? Or I'll do it. I don't care.
Yeah, why don't you do it, Sam? Because I'm not sure on the motion, frankly.
All right. I make a motion that we do not overturn. There is no administrative appeal to the building commissioner's decision.
Aren't we accepting his withdrawal? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My head went a different direction. All
Yeah.
right. I make a motion that we accept the withdrawal as specified 7:05 PM by Mr. Maxon.
Second.
John,
John Ellis, aye.
Jess,
Jessica Gino, aye.
Ron,
Andy Philip, aye.
Mike Gibbons, aye.
Sam Goodwin, aye. Thank you, sir. We are complete. I make a motion, we close the public hearing notice for the administrative appeal. Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Jessica Gino, aye.
Mike Gibbons, aye.
John Ellis, aye.
Andy Fluvall, aye.
Sam Goodwin, aye. Thank you, sir. All right, next item on the agenda. Continuation of 40B. All right. That was painful.
No intermissions allowed.
Yeah, my
Back to-
cups are almost empty. At 7 o'clock, right, Cindy? All right. I really
Yeah,
apologize.
we get a 5-minute break by the union contract.
Where are we? It's not, it's on the agenda, but I don't have any documents for it. All right, at 6:15, yeah, right. 7:15 or 7:05 PM, continued public hearing, application for comprehensive permit, MGL 40B. Does somebody have to leave, really? They want to take a couple minute break to go use the restroom or something?
Nope.
Nah,
I'm
All
okay.
right,
nah, just kidding.
all right. Okay. Neighborhood of Affordable Housing, Inc., 65 Fitchburg Road. All right, we have all the materials. We have reviewed them. Mr. Hart, that's a nice job. Very nice job on the letter. You're up, sir. Somebody's up.
So, Mr. Chair, I believe you're talking about the notice of decision. You guys have the draft.
Yeah,
The notice of
yeah.
decision. So did you want to go over that with Attorney Haverty, or does anyone have specific questions on that?
I do. I have specific questions.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the others do too. I know there's a lot of blank spots that are going to get filled in, but I looked through it, I read it, and I just had a couple questions.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I can make a recommendation,
Yes, sir.
I think it might be a good idea to go through the draft decision page by page and just ask all of the members if they have any questions or concerns or additions, on each page. I don't think we need to go through every line of the decision. That would take quite a
I
while.
was going to go out to, I'm out to C2, I already blew past A and B. I'm out of the C section.
I just think starting
Yep.
from page 1 and moving forward will save us from jumping around a lot. And I'm
Okay,
going to be trying to make.
that's fine. That's
I'm
fine.
going to try to make any changes that are suggested as we go, so it's a lot easier for me to not have to keep
All right.
jumping back and forth.
One thing,
Yes,
so
John.
I just thought maybe that we should get the spreadsheet, because is everything on the spreadsheet already in here? Because I thought when I went through the spreadsheet, there was a couple of things that were still open.
So I know that whatever was in the most recent peer review letter has not been included in this decision. I actually had reached out to Carly and asked if I should update this based upon that new letter, or whether we should wait and discuss it tonight. And Carly suggested it would be better to wait and discuss it tonight. So.
Yeah, so I think if we want to pull up, and if you can do it, Paul, or I can do it, share screen, we'll go through the decision, and then we'll talk about those outstanding items. I think that's a good order.
All right.
Okay,
I'll let you do it, Carly. That's not really my forte.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
hi, Stephanie Kiefer. Good evening. If I may, I saw a draft of Mr. Haverty's draft of decision, and I also provided, I don't know if the board has seen it, but filling in some of the information in a red line version. And also putting in some comments that the applicant had for it. So I don't know if
Where?
that,
We have not seen that.
Where?
So Stephanie, if you have that's the one you had sent over last week, right?
that's correct. Yeah.
Okay,
We
so
lost
that
my there,
just,
so.
yeah, that got sent and it's updated on the website, so I can pull up the website and we can go through it with the red lines. I think that's gonna help everyone.
Okay, so
That's
the one I got
okay.
in my hot little hand is wrong,
It's not wrong, but it's now updated.
but it's not
If it
right.
has a lot of blanks in it, that most of them have been filled in.
Okay, fair enough.
So let me just find this in,
And I'm assuming we're not closing the public hearing tonight.
no,
No,
I wouldn't suggest it.
Yeah.
So I understand it, we're right at the 180-day deadline, so I would imagine we'll be extending it, because we won't finish everything tonight. Is that a good synopsis, Paul? You would agree with that?
Yes, I would agree with that.
Okay, so
how long would we extend it for?
we would
Well,
mutually.
again, the extension is, it requires the agreement of the applicant to extend. I would presume it would be for 30 days to allow us to schedule another public hearing.
Stephanie, I'm having trouble finding your red line version. Are you able to pull it up and we can share your screen? I'm sorry, there's so much stuff on this. I just didn't know if you could get it quicker than me.
If it's gonna take me a minute because I log on not through my Smolak and Bond. So
Yeah.
perhaps Paul has it though handy.
Carly, I'm going to forward it to you right now.
Okay, thank you.
Just sent it.
Got it.
While you're doing that, I just say some of us are, I've dropped 6 times while the presentation has been going on, so maybe we have a weak link. I think the same thing is happening to Annika, so if you see us disappear and come back.
I had that problem last month.
Okay.
I ended up coming in on a phone.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. I got it. Thank you, Paul.
Welcome.
I'll also say while you're doing this, we're under some time pressure as well for financing and everything else. So Stephanie will respond as we go through this, but thank you.
So Paul, if you want to start going through and then I can just kind of scroll as you talk, if that works.
Certainly. So page 1, there was just one marginal comment stating that the draft decision presumes that the hearing would be closed tonight. And if it's not and an extension is granted, then this will have to be revised.
And I'll just note, if you scroll back up a bit, the date is not 20,220.
Thank you.
Okay.
So any other questions or concerns on page 1?
Nope.
No.
All right, moving to page 2, on number 6, Stephanie has provided some additional information where blanks were left. So that addresses my original comment.
On number 8, never mind. I see Stephanie's added in Janet Pravadakis, so that's what I was going to suggest. So.
Okay.
Okay, then we'll do. So we're on page 3.
Well, at the bottom of page 2, on subsection C, it says Fourth Amendment to Purchase and Sale Agreement dated May 23rd, 2022. Stephanie, has that been submitted?
I believe that it has. Carly can confirm that, but
A Fourth Amendment to the purchase and sales. Let me double check. I'll make a note of that.
okay. If it isn't for some reason, I believe that it has. We can submit that then or
Yeah.
resubmit it.
Okay.
Page 3. And I'm sorry, I'm just going through and accepting these changes. So there was a marginal comment. Do we have evidence that Peace Properties Inc. is a related entity of NOAA? Stephanie, I think.
I'm sorry,
We
Paul.
can do that easily, Paul. I don't know if it's there or not. We can pretty easily get that for you.
I mean, I think even just an affirmative statement from you.
Yes, it is.
Part of the public hearing, yeah, I think that's sufficient for us.
So I have a question. When I look at D, the town does not have an approved housing production plan pursuant. How does that relate to what we're doing here?
I actually, Alicia's on from our community development office. Alicia, can you speak to the housing production plan? We're in the midst of working on it, I believe, right? I just want to double check that.
I thought that was just a factual statement of where we are.
Sorry.
Correct, so.
I thought we
That's
had
sort
it
of,
approved, but maybe.
it's one of the safe harbor determinations. And it's based upon the date of the application to the Board of Appeals. So if you didn't have an approved housing production plan as of the date the comprehensive permit application was filed, then for this project, there isn't one.
We do have a approved housing production plan.
When
So
was it approved?
should that be stricken then? I mean, I don't,
Well, it wouldn't be stricken if there was a housing production plan in effect as of the date the comprehensive permit was filed, then it should be noted that the town does have.
so,
Yes.
so then it
Yes,
will be
was
before it's
in
filed.
effect by the time it was filed.
What effect does that have on this?
In the end, it doesn't have any effect because the town doesn't have certification
Certification of what?
that you had created the requisite number of affordable housing units during the period in which the.
So our housing production plan has been in effect since, I think it's 2019. And it specifically states that we were looking for a nonprofit, a 40P developer to do exactly what we're doing here. So that is part of the housing production plan because we recognized that we were losing units very quickly. But it has been in effect since, I think, the fall of 2019.
So should this one be stricken? Somebody else mentioned that.
I think it should
No,
just be
it-
amended, right?
It should be amended to note that the town does have a housing
Okay.
production plan in effect.
And the same as E, that will be amended as well.
I
No,
don't know. I don't know. If we,
so the way the recent progress provision works, it's somewhat similar to the housing production plan safe harbor, but recent progress doesn't require an approved housing production plan. It just has a higher threshold in terms of the number of affordable units that have to have been approved. And it's a 12-month look back based upon the date that the comprehensive permit application was filed. So if, in order to achieve the safe harbor for the recent progress, you actually have to have approved 2% of your total year-round housing
Okay.
stock within the 12
that's
months
fine then.
prior, and that has not occurred.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so then we move on to factual findings. And I see that there has been a change with regard to the number of parking spaces, been reduced from 157 to 155.
That's correct. With the inclusion of the handicap, 2 of the spaces were reduced, so it's 155 is the total number.
And then Attorney Kiefer provided the percentage of the site that will be consisting of impervious surface. So that was some missing information I was looking for.
So now when do we discuss this? I mean, are we saying, okay, we're okay with this, or when does that come into discussion?
Well, again, we're going through page by page. If you have any questions or concerns about something that's on one of these pages, now would be the time to discuss it.
Okay, because I'm kind of uncomfortable with that.
Which one?
The number of parking spaces.
Okay.
Okay, so just to clarify, this is stating what the applicant is proposing. All right, the waiver for the parking will be addressed later in the decision. So
Okay.
here, this is just a factual.
Okay, so
statement.
we're not going to deal with it now. Okay, that's all.
We're
I
not dealing
wanted.
with the substantive portion of whether or not that the board agrees with this proposal. This is just laying out exactly what was proposed.
All right.
Okay, but that's addressed in the waiver.
Correct.
Okay,
And it's also addressed in the conditions.
Yep.
So if there are any other questions on page 4, moving on to page 5. Doesn't look like there was any additional information provided. Are there any questions or concerns with any of these paragraphs?
so on that page, you'll fill in these dates when they happen with revisions through where it's blank. Those that get filled in.
So which number are you looking at?
I'm looking at A2
Yep, okay. So,
and above it, A1.
Yep.
Those are blank.
yeah, so
Page
they
6
have
is
been,
called-
yeah, in the updated version that Attorney Kiefer provided, though, that information has been included.
Yeah, so,
The ones we
John.
have, John, the ones we have, you and I, where I printed mine out, I don't have the red line, the ones that they put the dates in, so I got blanks too.
right, so that's why we're going through page by page, because since you got the.
Okay, so there's numbers there now. Okay,
Yeah,
okay, I'm just looking, because I marked mine up, so I'm just looking
did
at
I.
what I
Yep.
had for marks.
Yep. Okay.
And A3,
Yeah.
signage details, is that done? I can't read that fast.
Looks like it struck out. Signage details has been struck out.
So I think Attorney Kiefer should address this question.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there is not a plan showing signage details. So the signage details will be shown within the final plans. And at this point, we're withdrawing the waiver request. If at the time that they find that the signage doesn't comport with the bylaw and they seek a waiver, they would have to come in for a request to amend or to modify and to include the waiver. But at this point, there's no waiver being sought, and the final plans will show the signage. And as I said, the intent is to adhere to the bylaw requirements. And should there be a need in the future to seek relief from the signage provisions, the applicant would have to come back with a notice of proposed modification.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Okay, any other questions or concerns on page 7?
On A7, I was wondering, we do see it's a 30-day time period. If 60 days elapse without a response, plans are deemed approved. But in today's economic climate, there are a number of entities that seem to have trouble getting the outside reviews, outside consultants. So is 60 days enough time to ensure that?
I mean, in my experience, 60 days should be sufficient time. In particular, you already have a peer review consultant that's involved in this matter.
Okay,
So, I mean, you just continue using that same peer review consultant. They have the knowledge of, what transpired during the course of this hearing. They're very familiar with the plans and the board's decision. So
Okay.
that should make it relatively simple.
All right.
that works.
I did have a marginal notation on A7. So HAC decisions have indicated a preference for final, review of final plans to be done by any, local staff member that would normally review that sort of thing. So as I've put in provides for the submission of plans or other documents for approval by the town planner. But I don't know if that is, what the common practice is for the town, whether you want to have somebody else overseeing this.
Yeah, Paul, my suggestion, just based on our current practice, would be to put in the building commissioner, not the town.
Building
planner.
commissioner, that's
Yeah.
fine. All right, so change that. Anything else on
8:10.
page 9, 8:10? Okay.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about the fire hydrant maintenance. And I just think that I'm kind of wondering if they're going to take care of that and the town's not going to take care of those. I'm wondering about the maintenance and the flushing and all the, all the other things that are going to be required of that. And how does that get monitored?
Dan's on the call. Dan, do you have comment on that?
Yeah, so those would be considered private hydrants. And so typically, if another owner of a private hydrant we have in town, they're responsible for maintaining it. They have to give us a report when it gets done and let us know that it's being done if anyone uses a hydrant in town.
Okay, so what we're saying, it's monitored through the highway department.
Yeah, through the DPW water division. Yep.
Okay, because I was just concerned that it might get neglected if it wasn't in the town's purview.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else on page 9?
No.
All right, moving on to page 10. I know I had a marginal notation on B4 regarding local preference. And I just think that this is something that the board should have a discussion about, whether or not it wants to require a local preference, whether it wants to require up to the maximum of 70%. And also make the board aware that in your decision, you can include a condition that requires a local preference, but that has to acknowledge that ultimately it's the subsidizing agency that gets to determine whether a local preference is allowed and to what extent it is allowed.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because I saw where it said a lottery to be established in a form approved by subsidizing agency. Who's the subsidizing agency? The state?
Yes, in this case, it's DHCD, right, Stephanie?
Correct.
Who?
Yeah. The Department of Housing and
DHCD.
Community Development.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
So I'm just confused. Only 70% of these units are affordable housing?
No,
Or
no, no.
only
Actually-
70% are in the lottery?
You're allowed to include a local preference of up to 70% of the units, of the affordable units. Right, so basically it creates a scenario where you have multiple lotteries in which you have the local preference as part of one lottery and then everybody is part of the second lottery. It definitely complicates that process a little bit, although there's, certainly lots of lottery agents who are very familiar with how to implement that. But in order to do that, the board is going to be required to submit evidence to in this instance, DHCD as a subsidizing agency of the need for that local preference. And if DHCD is not satisfied with that, they may reject any local preference whatsoever. The only reason I sort of called this out was because a number of municipalities that I've been working with recently have rejected the concept of a local preference and prefer to keep it open, to a greater pool of applicants rather than just within the municipality.
Okay, so
Could we
that's not the, okay, thank you.
I just want Alicia, if we could speak on that. Alicia, do you have any thoughts on that with the local preference from your department?
We have given local preference up to 50% before. It doesn't always work out that way. But in this case, I actually think we should consider it because we've just had a second 100-unit apartment complex get sold and rents be increased by 40%. So, and this is the second 100 unit in the last 2 years. And so I get calls every day with people not knowing where to go because they've been evicted.
Right, and I tend to agree with Alicia, given the Devon's Crest situation.
Yeah.
And now what's happened over at the Casa Manors just sold, and then the Air Motor Inn has recently sold. So I think that our local people definitely need it. And I think this is where we can help.
And we might even write it in that local can have lived in the town in the last 5 years, because there's going to be a number of people who have been forced to move out of town because they could not find a place. And they very much don't want to move out of town, but we've had, 200 unit complexes sell and increase the rent drastically, and people are being evicted.
Good points, Alicia. So Paul, for us or the board to consider that, what should we be discussing?
Well, I mean, we can sort of tweak the language of this to make sure that we encompass that provision of the last 5 years. But again, at the end of the day, it's up to the discretion of the subsidizing agency as what will be allowed.
We have to submit a letter to the subsidizing agency. The ZBA has to do that?
Well, not necessarily the ZBA, it can come from the town.
Okay.
But they're going to require evidence of the need for that local preference.
Well, I think we just
It
heard
used to be that it was sort of automatically allowed, but
Yeah.
now they require some form of evidence to support that there is this local need. And it sounds like that should be pretty simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A letter sort of explaining exactly, I mean, first of all, you should have a lot of this information as part of your housing production plan that would have been developed. And then you can just point out that these other recent situations, have created a more pressing concern, for these displaced residents.
So when, just process wise, does that get submitted to DHCD? Is it something we do now or wait till we're done?
It's after the decision is issued.
Okay,
But technically, I think, and I have to go back and look at the DHCD guidelines. I think it's within 60 days of the decision being issued. It's a relatively short time frame.
okay, well, I can speak certainly for, many of the staff here in the building and the select board that I think they would really want to look at doing that local. And as Alicia suggested with the 5 year, just because we've had so many residents displaced recently.
So functionally, that would be done by you, Carly, or Alicia, or?
So Alicia and I would work on it together once the notice of decision was done. Or once we issue.
All right, so are there any?
I did have a
questions
question on page 9B1.
One, okay.
And so I could be wrong, but I was under the impression that all 106 units were affordable. And it sounds to me like this is spelling out, am I misinterpreting it? That there's only 27 affordable units?
No, so this is really just stating what the minimum requirement can be.
Okay.
So I've actually run into this issue with the HCD and with the Housing Appeals Committee on decisions that I've drafted for boards in the past that have included a condition, that basically stated the applicant proposed, that 100% of the units be affordable, and therefore the decision requires 100% of the units to be affordable. And Housing Appeals Committee struck that condition and said, no, you can't require more than 25%, as that's the minimum amount required by the subsidizing agency. So, I mean, we can note that the proposal was for 100% affordable.
Okay.
You can't require it as a condition.
Good.
Okay. And so my other question to follow up on that, what's the vehicle that establishes these units as affordable? Is it a deed restriction?
It's a deed restriction. It's also a regulatory agreement that gets executed with DHCD.
Okay, and that deed restriction is into perpetuity. It's not something that would expire in 25 years or 50 years.
Correct. So
Okay.
there's case law from the Supreme Judicial Court that states that a 40B permit that is either silent as to the term of affordability, or which expressly states that the term of affordability is in perpetuity, it will be in perpetuity for as long as the buildings do not comply with the underlying zoning. So these units will stay affordable again forever.
Great, thank you.
All right, anything on page 11? Hearing nothing, page 12. I'm on a roll. Hearing nothing, page 13.
Actually, go back
you
on
blew
page
it.
12.
Page 12.
And I was just wondering under C, whether, would that be where you could also indicate the permitting agencies having jurisdiction that could include the Conservation Commission? Or would that be a later thing since?
So I can note that the conservation agent may review. The Conservation Commission wouldn't have any jurisdiction to review the final plans.
Okay,
But certainly the conservation agent would be one of the local officials, that can review.
okay, that would be fine.
Yep.
And that's agent with a capital A, since that's the new title, so it's official.
Page 13, anything?
Under on E, just as a grammatical thing, I think, in the middle of the paragraph, shall be issued under this comprehensive permit until the town planner and other applicable staff, shouldn't that be have approved?
Hold on, I'm just trying to find out where you are.
Also in that, I would put the building commissioner again, just,
Yeah, I'm going to go through,
okay,
And-
and then update it.
pull out all of the places where that should be changed.
Thank you.
Page 14. Page 15.
On E1,
Yep.
for the pre-construction conference, could you also include the conservation agent on that?
Yep.
Let me ask a question on E2. It says representative of the board to observe and inspect the property and construction progress. I'm assuming that they're going to have people on staff that are going to do the inspections while it's being built, other than the town. Is that correct?
Correct.
They'll have a construction manager there, but this is for the town to have some oversight as well.
Yeah.
All right.
Moving on to page 16. So I think that we've already addressed E6 and the signage.
Yes.
So I will revise this to note that the applicant has withdrawn its waivers for signage, and that the final plans, will be reviewed for consistency with the signage bylaws. E8, it looks like is being deleted. Stephanie, so are you not using natural gas?
Correct, that's my understanding. I believe we have Taylor on as well, but I don't believe that natural gas is being proposed for this project, so I wasn't certain if that was a carryover of a prior decision.
It's, yeah, I mean, it's something that is sort of in my standard
Yeah.
decisions, but so what is going to be the heating source?
Taylor, are you on?
Yeah, I am on. My understanding from the architect is that it's all electric.
Oh, that's gonna hurt.
I think they're gonna be solar panels, so that'll help.
It's better because we're just making National Grid really rich this month.
Annika,
what I
could you
would-
confirm that? Because I don't think that Frank is on.
I think while Annika may be on or off here, we're trying to meet sustainability guidelines from the state, so I don't have this on the exact answer. If they prefer all electric for decarbonization, then we would be doing that. I don't have the exact answer. We'll have to get it for you.
Sorry, I was struggling to unmute. Could you repeat the question just one more time for me so I can make sure I answer it accurately?
Sure, the Taylor from BSC had said that Frank isn't on the call, but he thought that it was all electric, and I wasn't certain if it was all electric.
So I honestly am not 100% certain. I would be inclined to believe our civil engineer. I know that he's done quite a bit of work and he knows the plans back and front. To echo what Phil said, yes, our intention is to meet any sustainability goals or requirements. It's obviously helpful for our project to be Passive House certified when we go through a DHCD application. So, as far as meeting Passive House requirements, I do believe we were considering electric heat pumps for the domestic hot water, which would eliminate any need for gas on site. I will have to double check and confirm that we do not have any usage of gas planned. But I do believe, just to echo Phil, our hope and our goal is to move towards an all electric project, as that's typically the kind of end result for many of the municipalities we're working with.
So in that case, I suggest we leave it in until we have confirmation.
Yeah, I mean, what I can do is change this one to state that the applicant proposes to use electric heat. We can get confirmation of that. I can also note that if, the heating source is changed, it just requires notification to the board and it would be considered to be an insubstantial change. Moving on to page 17.
E12.
Okay.
For the infiltration system, I just wanted to see if Dan Van Schalkwyk had anything to say on that, if that was acceptable. For the infiltration system.
Yeah, so this is my first time reading it, so I'm just trying to read it. Yeah, so no, this is typical. It's basically they're doing testing of the area where the system will go, confirming the soil types, so the actual physical testing on site. Yeah, so they do need to do that information. That is something we want to have before we actually install a stormwater system there.
Okay.
Okay.
So would you be the designee to witness that?
Yes, the DPW could do that, or we could hire an inspector, but it could run through the DPW, yes.
So you could put that in, please?
Yep. right, so moving on to page 17. The hours of activity, of construction activities. These are required to be whatever the typical hours are allowed for construction projects within the municipality. I just, included some
So,
hours, but I don't know what your official hours.
yeah, we have a bylaw on that. I will look it up right away and then I'll get that to you.
Else on 17? Hearing nothing. 18?
And it looks like the, if you could go back up to E18, which it looks like some of the things have changed pages on this new draft. So,
They have.
Yeah.
I noticed that too, Jess.
on E18, if you could put in something that, this is going back to Green International's comment as well, that the location of the snow storage should be also reviewed by the conservation agent. Green International, I believe, didn't want any snow storage in the buffer zone or in areas upland that would flow downhill. So, but they deferred to the Concom. So if that could indicate the conservation agent in some respect.
Wouldn't the conservation agent, they're gonna review the approved plans, so.
Right,
wouldn't-
so what I would just add is snow storage areas shall be reviewed by the conservation agent as part of the review of final plans.
Right, and actually I talked to our agent earlier today about this, and she noted that generally this sort of requirements put into every sort of project permit like this, but that the actual people who wind up doing snow plowing never know about approved locations or not. So I'm wondering if, we were wondering if there's any way to indicate that whatever snow storage is indicated and approved on the final plans, that there's some sort of proof of notification of the contractor who will then take over doing the snow plowing, so that at least there's a chain of information so that whoever actually does it knows where they can go and where they can't.
Can I add something?
You can add something on that?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Paul, real quick, the noise bylaw limits construction between 7 AM and 7 PM.
And what about weekends?
It doesn't differentiate. I will check with the building commissioner tomorrow, though.
Okay, and what about Sundays?
I'll check with Charlie on that.
All right, moving on to page 18.
I don't know, is that F? No, I could get into F2. No, I'm good.
My page 18 starts with E19.
Mhm.
Okay.
Hearing nothing. Page 19, which begins with E27.
Oh, you did F2. Okay, what does it say?
E27, at least in our minutes for the last meeting, we'd had some discussion on whether it should be a condition of approval, which I presume is this document, that this be resolved in the question of by who's doing this or when it's being done.
My recollection was that the applicant had stated that that was going to be part of the requirements for the transfer of the property. But, we obviously can't impose conditions upon the seller or anything really having to do with that transaction. So the only thing that we can do is impose conditions, that it must be done prior to the commencement of construction.
Okay.
We do have some suggested changes from the applicants under section F. So if you want to talk about F2, which is the
F2.
location of the proposed sidewalk.
What about also crosswalks, given the shop and save?
Their amendment proposes that they wouldn't make a sidewalk to Shop and Save. It would just be in front of their property, if I'm reading it right.
That is correct.
So they wouldn't be concerned about that.
Okay. Wouldn't we want a crosswalk of some sort that would give pedestrians going to Shop and Save some protection, though?
Well,
Yes.
what would a crosswalk do if there's not a sidewalk there to come from?
Yeah.
Well, they're going to be crossing the street at night, so they should have, one of the illuminated crosswalks. You press the button and it flashes the lights. These people can cross the street.
I don't think we can do that, though. I think that's the state that's got to do that, doesn't it?
Well, I thought that's what we were going to do. Somebody was going to work with the state to see if we could do that.
It would.
But I was
seem-
under the, go ahead, Jess, sorry.
I was just going to say, I've heard the planning board has started making requirements like this when they do site plan review on other large projects. I think the best we could do here was to see if it was possible if Mass DOT agreed. And if Mass DOT didn't, then the condition, any condition like that also would be null and void. But
That was
why not?
essentially my understanding too.
Yeah,
that
but why not see if we could
we
get something
can't-
like that?
Right.
So are we actively working on that, or what's the status of that?
That's the applicant, has to work with DOT.
And I thought they said that, they have to work with them.
Yeah. Best efforts. And so it
So
would seem
that's
to me that
ongoing?
this would be where to make
That's
that.
what that's what it says.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
The applicants, just to be clear, and I think Mr. Gibbons correctly stated that we're proposing for the sidewalk just on the frontage along the property. And so if what you're suggesting now is that you would like us to use best efforts to obtain approval for a crosswalk across the street, is that what the board is suggesting right now?
Well, that's what we're trying to determine. I mean, there's no sense putting a crosswalk there
If
you're
there's no
walking
sidewalk.
through the dirt. If there's no sidewalk, that's right. So I don't know how the pieces. I don't have. Yeah, I do have your drawings here. I don't know how they relate your property lines to, say, Shop and Save across the street. I don't know how they align.
Well, at this particular point, even though across the street or going further down, there won't be a sidewalk, people are still going to be trying to cross the street to get to the Shop and Save. So my preference would be if we could get a crosswalk. If
Is
we
there
could
a-
try to get a crosswalk, that would be a good thing.
I don't know
I'm
if
just
there's a
gonna pop
crosswalk.
on, I'm just gonna pop on this Google map so you kind of get a sense.
Yeah, because their property runs right up to Anderson.
Yeah.
And so
So here's the Shop and Save. Yeah, here's Anderson Funeral Home. This is
we're
the,
still seeing the document, Carly.
really?
Yeah.
Sorry. My bad. Hold on. Okay, so here's 65 Pittsburgh Road. Here's Anderson. And then right across, here's the Shop and Save.
Oh,
If you throw it in satellite, you get kind of a kind of a nice breakdown because you can see like the dirt lot for Sydney's and,
Here we go.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, so they
Might show a
could,
little different.
they could cut right, oh, that's the AVS.
Yeah, that's pretty
Right.
far, that's pretty far up. I don't think that's right. Is it?
that's right.
Is
That's
it?
right. Yep.
AVS is across from the wood yard?
Yep.
All right.
The Shop and Save is definitely, yeah, that turbo loop and then Anderson's above it.
Yeah, so there's no direct connect.
No. Sort of negates the use for a crosswalk, doesn't it?
Dan, does Dan have any thoughts on this? I was just curious.
Yeah. So right now, as you've seen at Shop and Save, they're going through upgrades there with a new auto zone. And the planning board's required them to extend the current sidewalk, which currently goes from Tiny's just down to the first driveway if you're heading west on Fitchburg Road.
Yeah.
They're extending that to the second driveway further west down Fitchburg Road. And I think the intent behind that was this 40B potentially was coming, and having that sidewalk connection will fill in the gap all the way from Tiny's down to Shop and Save. And now when you have, 100 and so many bedrooms of low income housing at 65 Fitchburg Road, it really makes a lot of sense to have that pedestrian connection to the Shop and Save, because there's probably gonna be a lot of trips there. So if we have a gap there, it's not going to be a good thing for the pedestrian traffic. So
Can they run one across Anderson's land?
So you'd have to kind of look at where the right of way is.
Yeah.
So you could keep it within the right of way of Fitchburg Road, which is obviously owned by Mass DOT. From what I understand is once this permit is complete, and it's kind of coincides with Paul's condition, is that then Mass DOT can be approached and can have the discussion with the applicant about what would be needed to make that connection from 65 Fitchburg Road to Shop and Save, if that's what the connection ends up being. Right now, they were proposing to do something shorter than that and leave a gap. And at that time, they would review from an engineer's perspective what criteria is needed for traffic calming, for crosswalks, it was mentioned the rectangular rapid flashing beacon and so on. So that's what I understand. And my recommendation would be to not leave a gap there, just based on the size of this development and the likelihood of trips that are going from the development to the Shop and Save.
especially in light of the request for fewer parking spots,
Yep.
True.
right? The idea is that we're going to have more people biking and walking and
Yep. Okay.
Alicia, yeah,
Yeah. So we've been well aware of this because part of the whole discussion has also been for people that might be walking to the train to work or whatever it is from this location. So we're well aware of it. Alan and I have been talking about possibly looking at a housing choice grant to get some planning done on that, to take a look at that corridor about what we could do to make the walking safe and that sort of thing and what's needed. Now, that would be just a planning grant, but it would get the discussion going. So Paul, for you, maybe something written in there that the applicant not only work with Mass DOT, but with the town to plan this out, that it's, I don't know what you need there. Maybe you know better what you need there. But it's easy for us to talk about it, but what we really need is engineers to look at it and tell us what needs to happen there.
So do we have, I'm sorry, I haven't looked at the list of who's on the call. Is someone from Green on the call right now?
I don't think so.
yeah, I don't think so either. I'm just noticing.
I think that probably would be appropriate to get that sort of language from them.
Okay.
I just say without throwing any money on the table, I think we're happy to work with the town on figuring out the appropriate solution is. I don't know some of the technical legal stuff about where it ends, or you have to pay for somebody else's property, that kind of thing, but certainly we'll work with you on planning.
So let me mention this to Green. I'll reach out tomorrow. Alicia and I, we can do that and then get a sense on proper wording or whatever.
Yes, and just to be clear, I think that as Phil has just stated, we have in the past said that we would agree to, work with the town and DOT relative to coordination, but what we're proposing again for our sidewalk is just on our side of the property, between our property lines. And I think that any language, unless and until there's a plan from between the town and DOT relative to extending the sidewalk to seek a sidewalk to cross the street, it's not only an expensive thing to do, but it's also, as you referenced, Mr. Chairman, somewhat dangerous. It's kind of luring people to cross the street to where there is nothing, and it's not necessarily taking into account the existing entrance drives to the ABS or to our site. If you just have, so I think that I mean, I understand the intent of what the town wants to do in the future, but I don't know that it's properly within this 40B proposal to work that out. And again, as Phil suggested, we're happy to have discussions and to coordinate our work, but our proposal is just to install the sidewalk between our property side yards.
But I'd love to see some coordination, more coordination with the town as well as DOT, because the increase in the pedestrian traffic is precisely because of the 40B. So whether it's confined to just right in front of your building area, it's still going to have ripple effects outside that area as people are traveling. And I think.
Yeah, I would say we agree. We'll work with you on this. I think we're cautious about how much more do we have to spend on property and easements and planning and engineering for property that we don't own and control. That's all.
Right. Yeah.
But it's a good point.
I'll go back to the decision.
Thank you.
All right, and so the next question is F3, which the applicant proposes deleting. This was taken from one of the comments from the Green peer review. So again, this is something that should be discussed.
I've got to be honest, the sidewalk piece that we just discussed, I see as realistic. I understand that easements may need to be granted and we'd have to work with Mass DOT. I think putting a light in here would be much more difficult. And
Which light are you talking about?
I think we're talking about F3.
Right. So I interpreted the comment from Green as just them funding the traffic signal warrant analysis. I didn't think that it was suggesting that they actually put in the traffic light, which I mean I can't think would be even remotely justifiable.
Yeah.
Given the level of traffic that exists compared to the additional level of traffic. The question is whether or not the amount of additional traffic that is proposed from this project would be something that could potentially trip, the warrant analysis to actually make it so that a traffic light would be necessary here. Again, it's this was something that was brought up by Green. The board can discuss this. I see the sidewalk question as being of far more importance than
exactly
traffic.
I agree.
And if I may, I believe that Green's comment there with its most recent round, I believe that had been, how they had color coded their comments. And so yellow were what they considered open comments. I believe that their comment relative to the traffic signal was one of their yellow comments. And then in their last round of comments, they said that all of their open comments had been satisfied and they were closed out. So I think that they were actually, and you can double check this, but my understanding was they were taking that recommendation even off after further discussions with BSC's traffic engineer. And I don't believe it was one of their, what they coded as red or blue.
Well,
there.
let me ask a question though. I've got the spreadsheet and the latest one I have is dated 11/10, November 10th. Is that the latest or is there one after?
No, it's December 13, I believe, or December 15.
Yeah, that was all sent to the board last week and it's up on the website.
I swear I just printed this. All right.
There's a lot of information. It's
Yeah,
back and forth, so easily confused.
maybe it was last week I printed it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, another piece down the toilet. All right.
But bottom line, I'm not opposed to striking this. I think frankly, if we needed to do a traffic
Yeah,
signal warrant analysis, it would be at Park and Main Street. So
I
I'm not
thought
concerned about it.
somewhere it was already determined that there was not enough increase to warrant a light.
Yeah,
I
that's
thought-
what I thought.
Yeah, so striking that is fine.
Yeah.
All right, so there's nothing else under F. Under G, I have on my version G1 through G6. On the rest of page 19, are there any questions or concerns there? Hearing none, moving on to page 20, beginning with G7. I do have a marginal notation from Attorney Kiefer on G9. She's going to be confirming this condition with NOAA. I don't know, Attorney Kiefer, if you have an update on that?
I do, thank you. There is not a card access system that has been proposed for this. So I'm not quite certain where this language came from, and I wasn't certain if it was in something we had, but
It could be a leftover from an earlier.
yeah, I'm told that there's no card access system
Was this for the residents or the construction people?
for the residents.
Why would you timestamp residents? That's sort of invasive, isn't it?
Well, there are some developments that do that.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it's just so that they can, it's a security question.
Okay.
So that gets stricken?
Yeah.
Yep, it's stricken. Anything else on page 20? Hearing nothing, moving to page 21.
Actually go back up because H2 changed its page location. If H2 could also add in reference to the conservation agent having some involvement on this, given the sewer infrastructure and the latest plan is going to cross the wetlands to get to Isaac Lane. So it should be in conformance with the DPW's technical requirements, but also for the stream crossing should be in conformance also with all state and mass DEP requirements as well. And I think having the conservation agent also have a look-see on this would be good. Does that sound good, Paul?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm typing something up right now.
Okay, great.
I would add a sentence at the end of H2. The stream crossing to allow the sewer construction shall conform to all state and local requirements not waived by this decision. Next sentence, the conservation agent shall review the final plans to conform this information. Is that good?
Okay. Yep.
Okay, moving on to page 21, which begins on my version with H5. I do note that Attorney Kiefer has suggested a change to I1, just to add that the order of conditions will be the State Wetlands Protection Act only, which is consistent with chapter 40B requirements.
And I would also just add in that the buffer zone is not just to a bordering vegetated wetland, but also an intermittent stream, which just underscores that state stream crossing standards will have to be met.
Actually have a question of my own condition, which is silly. On page 22 of my draft, it's I6. This to me looks like it was a leftover from a prior decision that I drafted. Is any portion of this within jurisdiction of Division of Fisheries and Wildlife?
That's natural heritage.
Yep.
So yes.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Given that, what is it, the fern or something like that? There's one plant. I was looking at that too with Fish and
Yeah,
Wildlife.
so I took this condition from a decision that I drafted in Groveland.
Yeah.
That had significant Division of Fisheries and Wildlife issues. So again, just review this condition and make sure that you're okay with it.
It might be, would it be clearer instead of DFW to just refer to Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program?
And I can just put natural heritage, just sort of the common.
Yeah.
And I would ask, since that was a carryover, I didn't know if there had been specific that language that had come from actually this board to you, Paul. Does the board even want that sort of condition? And the applicant suggests that if the board does want that, could we increase the distance between those to 100 feet as opposed to the proposed 50 feet?
Is that a state law?
Hmm?
Is that a state law, the distance?
No.
No.
I know for Conservation Commission, we usually, when we require signs separating backyards from conservation protected land, we do, I think we do 50 feet. So I would not be in favor of changing that to 100.
I'm with you, Jess.
Also, the specific location of the signs and markers shall be agreed to at the pre-construction meeting, and this I'd also include the conservation agent as part of that.
That would change to the specific locations of the signs and the markers shall be agreed to by the conservation agent at the pre-construction meeting.
That would be fine.
Okay. Anything else on page 22? '23 for me begins with I-10. I don't have any suggested changes from the applicant. Does the board have anything?
I would just correct in the first line of I-10, I would just capitalize agent.
Okay.
It's a specific person. It's a specific title.
Page 24, which begins with a J1 for me. Again, no suggested changes from the applicant. Does the board have anything? Hearing nothing, moving on to page 25, J7 and J8. Any concerns?
Nothing.
I'm sorry, was there a concern?
Nope.
No? Okay. So that completes the decision portion. So we can then move on to the proposed waiver decisions. So I will note that the applicant's waiver list had a preliminary statement that was basically asking for blanket waivers, which I never recommend boards do, both for its own protection and the applicant's protection. Because if the board is granting waivers to which it is not actually aware, that opens up your decision to challenge as being arbitrary and capricious. So I prefer not to grant blanket waivers. So moving on to the specific waiver requests, zoning bylaws, section 1.4, and I think it makes sense to run through the waiver requests.
I want to throw something on the table here. I think we've gone about far enough for one night. I think we ought to ask for a extension and then schedule another meeting short of the next scheduled meeting. Meaning, what I'm trying to say is, I think we should schedule a meeting for January the 11th and the 18th.
Okay.
I think it's been a pretty long meeting, and we got to work our way through 30 variances.
Sure.
31.
So what I would recommend,
yeah,
Chairman, at the acquiescence of the applicant, again, because they're the ones that control whether extensions are granted. If the board is going to hold hearings on the 11th and the 18th, I think that if you can give the applicant some assurance that by the completion of the hearing on the 18th, the board will be prepared to actually vote on this decision, and then you wouldn't have to take use of the 40-day time period that's allotted for deliberation. I think that actually is beneficial to the applicant. It's going to get them to complete this more quickly, and it's beneficial to the board because we can go through everything while the hearing is still open and continue to get feedback.
Yes, sir.
Well,
yeah, Jess.
I'm just thinking there is more to do than just the waiver list at this point. Is that right?
No, we work our way through the waiver list and then we resolve it. That's when we finish the waiver list is when we're going to vote on it. Is that correct?
Well, there was still a couple of things they had on the worksheet that we needed to look at, I thought.
What?
And we were going to do that at a different time.
Well, I can go through the latest iteration of the peer review from Green International and incorporate anything else that is in that letter that is not in the decision. So we can have that for the next meeting.
That would be my suggestion. I mean,
Yeah, I only saw a couple of items on that list that I had a comment on.
it's gonna take a while to work our way through that list. I don't see it happening tonight. We lack of a better term, we're kind of give up the first hour of this meeting,
Yeah, I agree with you there. I just want to make sure that would get looked at as well as the waivers.
Well, that's why, yes, Jess?
Yeah, I just had one thing I did want to just throw at Paul and maybe Noah for just consideration in the interim, which is just a little lengthier thing on, is there a way to incorporate permanent protection for the open space on this project? Whether something as a conservation restriction or whether something in agreement with Fish and Wildlife, which is right next door, but to put the wetland area, the open space in, and I think even that back northwest corner that's outside of jurisdiction but not going to be developed, somehow have that permanently protected.
I thought that was a deed restriction.
I don't know.
So that can definitely be part of a comprehensive permit decision. It's not something that can really be imposed by the board. It can be offered by the applicant, so I will let Attorney Kiefer speak to that.
I remember seeing that. I remember the conversation we had where it was blocked from further development. I remember the conversation. Was Miss Kiefer said that, didn't you?
No, but I think Annika had said there's a back portion, the very back of the property that's outside of buffer zone.
And it
that
would not be developed.
It would not be developed by NOAA.
Oh.
So my sense is if that, it just would be a good gesture of some sort if that whole back section was protected.
I think I'd like us to take a harder look at that, Jess, before we say yes, but
That's why I wanted to mention it tonight, so there's time
Yeah.
to take a harder look.
yeah.
All right.
I know Stephanie will have a comment on the extensions that are requested. I think these are going to be really difficult for us. I mean, we have been ready since 6 o'clock or 6:15 to go through the waiver list, and now to wait 3 more weeks and then yet another week on top of that. I think we'd be happy to if there weren't the pressures of having to turn over $1.7 million with the Flagg family on March and having our financing lined up, and they sort of expect that the ZBA will grant this. And then we have I don't know if it's 20-day or a 40-day appeal period, but we've got to wait through that before we can get that. So we are really pressed to make this happen and be given the dynamic between us and the seller, frankly, and then the financing that we've lined up and have ready to go. So this is a huge challenge for us.
And my response to that would be, if the board is required to close the meeting tonight, they would then have a 40-day period in which they're allowed to deliberate. You would not be allowed to provide any additional comments to these proposed changes. And if the board waited out that 40-day period, issued its decision, then there's a 20-day appeal period. It's actually going to leave you further down the road than if you grant an extension and the board commits to completing and issuing its decision after the January 18th hearing.
Does it have to be January 18th? Can you move it up and have one meeting?
Well, I said January the 11th and the 18th. And I said
Yes,
that because the 18th is our regular meeting, but I thought we should be able to finish it on the 11th, but I left room on the 18th. That's why I said that.
So scheduling wise, excuse me, we could meet the 11th, or we could meet earlier on the 4th. We'd have to do like 5 to 6:30 because the Community Preservation Committee meets on the 4th at 7.
I can't do that week at all.
Okay.
That's why I went with the 11th. I don't know if anybody else has conflicts, but I can't do it.
Yeah, the 11th works well for me, the 11th and the 18th. And I think we leave it open for the 11th and the 18th because, as you mentioned, we do have a number of waivers to discuss. I think based on the few comments I have on the waivers, I feel confident that we could commit to completing this discussion by the 18th.
I agree with that.
Make it happen.
I don't know if Annika is here or Stephanie can weigh in. I just know that we face hard deadlines that we can't evade or avoid. And, we're already stuck paying a lot more than I'll leave it at that.
Right. And the time pressures, unfortunately, that we're facing, I think we tried to kind of present that at the beginning of this application process that, we were really hoping to move this forward. I very much appreciate Paul's suggestion that if there's to be an extension, that the board would then not use its 40-day period at the close of the hearing to issue the decision. And maybe I would layer on top of that, could we do something like, and I know this is asking of the board, but consider the 11th and the 12th, or the 11th and another day yet that week to, if it's really just a minor wrap up of things. I think that the decision is very much in good shape, and there are very minor things that are just need to be, circled around. Whether the hours of construction that are allowed on the weekends. That's very kind of easy to address sort of questions. Now, I understand that the board wants to review the waivers and to obtain input. But I just think that if additional time is needed, and Annika, if you're listening, if the 11th even works, if we could just close it by that date.
Could we, I mean, if we wanted to have two meetings, to have just a little bit, could we do something like the 9th and the 11th? I can't do the 12th because of Conservation Commission, but
Schedule wise for the town, we could do the 9th and the 11th on Zoom. Yeah.
Hi, I am
have-
still on the line.
I have another hearing.
Okay.
Yeah, Paul has a hearing on the 9th, he said. Is that
I
correct?
like the 11th and the 18th.
That's my.
If that works for Paul as well, I mean, that's of vital importance for us.
I do just want to, if I
for
may,
me.
fill in with some timelines, because the time, as Attorney Kiefer did mention, is extremely limited for us on this project. We do not have any ability to go any further past the date that we have set with the flags in our 4th Amendment. That is a hard date we were not willing to extend. The entirety of the deposit is in jeopardy. So if we are not able to secure our financing for this by that date, NOAA is out a considerable amount of money with the deposits we've put down thus far. So I do just want to press that I will need about 60 days for any lending agency to be able to turn around loan documents for an acquisition loan. And they have not been willing to consider beginning that process to review loan documents until we have a decision from the ZBA on this comprehensive permit. So I don't know if there's any assurances that could be made of the board that I would be able to provide to a lender to maybe get them to consider otherwise, but any attempts we've made thus far to prep the loan documents in advance of our March date for closing have been futile until this decision's been made. So I do just want to make everyone aware that, you know, I really need at least 60 days prior to the end of March in order to turn this around.
would January 11th or January 18th allow that?
Yes, it will.
Well, it still has a 20-day appeal period, unfortunately.
Yeah, you got a 40-day.
So let me ask this,
Plus 20, so
Paul,
that's 60
what
days.
you were proposing, Paul, was that if we can wrap this up on the 18th, the board would essentially forego that 40-day period, correct?
Correct. You'd be ready to submit the decision to the town clerk on January 19th. If you needed that second hearing on the 18th. If you didn't, you'd be ready to submit the decision to the town clerk on the 12th.
That's correct.
Right.
And
And
then-
short of that, we'd be looking essentially at February, right? If we
You would
closed
have
it
till
tonight.
January 30th. If the hearing closed tonight and you use the entire 40-day deliberation period, that would expire on January 30th.
Okay. Either way is fine by me.
So technically, you know, you could extend it, but there's no really reason to extend it 40 days, just really realistically. I mean, you could. But we're not in that. We're in sort of a collaborative relationship.
I mean, what would happen
We're
instead?
trying to accommodate you as well as to do our job. I
hear you, Sam.
I understand
I
you're
hear you.
I get that. You're under the gun, you're financing, but what Paul has said makes more sense than.
I'm not disputing that. I'm wondering, my counter is, can we do this in one meeting on January 11th with the stipulation that Paul's made?
I said we will do the 11th. We will try to get it done on the 11th, and I kept the 18th open in case we didn't get it done. That's we have a regular meeting scheduled on the 18th anyways.
So, I mean, I guess I could suggest a compromise, which is an extension to the 11th. And we can revisit this issue, you know, at the end of that meeting.
If we're not done.
Correct.
That would be fine with me.
So Paul, if we wrap things up on the 11th, can we waive the 40-day period?
Yeah, you don't even have to waive it. So you have 40 days from when you close your public hearing to render your decision. If it's ready to go on the day that you close it, the decision can be filed with the town clerk the next morning.
Okay.
And then the 20-day appeal period begins to run as soon as it's
Then-
filed with the town clerk.
And then after the 20-day appeal period, then they can submit. Right,
Correct.
they can, yeah, then they can do what they need to do.
Okay.
Annika, does that somewhat work for you guys? I mean, I understand where everyone's at, but we've come this far, so I want to make sure that,
Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there, Carla. I'm just trying to figure out how can we compress it as much as possible so that we can be assured, because again, we've paid $1 million so far. The flags have been intransigent. We've got line up financing. Those are just the hardest deadlines that we've got.
okay.
And so we're trying to be protective of that. It may be hard to convey it, but it hurts already to have done this. And our financing people have a little bit less patience than the rest of us do right now. So we're sort of really up against a brick wall in that way. So we're just trying to, how to convey that, I'm not sure. So if you can do one meeting on that night, I think, Annika, that may do it. I don't know if Paul is saying you can forego the appeal period. Is that possible, Paul?
No, you can't forgo the appeal period, unfortunately.
It's Phil, it's at the close of the hearing, the board is allowed up to 40 days. And Paul's suggestion is do the hearing on the 11th. And then at that point, decide whether or not you have a second extension until the 18th. And in consideration, the board would say, we'll issue our decision immediately, rather than
That's right.
take any part of that 40-day period.
We're right back to where we started from, right what I said. We'll have a hearing on the 11th. We'll continue on the 11th. And if we need it, we'll go to the 18th. We will issue our decision no later than the 18th. That's
Annika, does that work for us?
That's
against all
still 2 weeks
deadlines?
ahead of a
believe-
40-day 40-day period.
Yes, I think if we can get an assurance that the 18th would be the absolute latest day to receive a decision, I can likely work within that time frame and prepare the lenders for that date so that I'm able to hit the ground running with them as soon as possible. It's just my preference to not cut it any closer, given the past history that we've had working through extensions on this deal with the sellers thus far. I want to make everyone aware of the kind of tense relationship there, so they understand our perspective when I say, the 18th, that would really be the latest possible date to have this go. I would.
Well, technically,
All things
Annika,
being
it would
equal,
be
we should be able to work our way through it on the 11th. That depends on what we have to deal with on the waivers. It's that simple.
and technically it would be filed the 19th. I just want to clarify that.
Right.
Yes, yeah, but
With a
I can
20-day appeal
take
period.
Well, we certainly have been collaborative. We want to be collaborative. I know you're trying to be as well. It's just that we've written $1 million in checks so far, and we don't have a very friendly seller. And the financing is harder than you can imagine. So we faced a lot of tension, a lot of organizational challenges. It's really expensive, very tough. That's where we are. So anything you can do to accelerate. I mean, I know here's the waivers that we're going to go through. You may or may agree, you may or may not agree. And then we're into the 18th, that kind of thing. So that's my
You may
concern.
not agree. I mean, let's get real here. It's a two-way street. So we look at the waiver and say, no, we don't like that. We're not going to deal with
Well, I
that.
agree. That's what we're talking about, Sam. That could
Exactly.
continue to the 18th and it can't go beyond that.
That's right. It will. That's our drop dead date.
So I just want to, all the updated waiver, everything updated is on the website, the 40B. So just go to ayerma.us/40B, the updated waiver list of, as of last week.
Yeah, Paul's going to update it again, though, he said.
Yeah.
According to the spreadsheet.
The decision, not the waiver list.
Yeah, he's going to
The
update.
waiver list.
Well, I don't know if there's anything contained within the revised peer review letter that impacts the waiver list.
Well, John seemed to think there was, so you said you were going to look at it.
Yeah, I'll
That's good
review
enough.
it and
That's
make
good enough
whatever
for me.
updates.
Thank you.
Well, it was a bit of a surprise. I think we don't want to say no to you. That isn't where we've been. You've heard me again, I don't need to repeat it, but when it comes to the 11th, I hope we can do it. And then we have to march very quickly because again, we just don't have any flexibility.
We hope so,
Stephanie,
too.
why don't you wrap this up for us?
Okay. Yes, I think that why don't we, as Paul suggested, do the two-step approach? We'll agree to an extension until the 11th. Our hope there is that it will be wrapped up. And then if we need to discuss a further 7 days, we can discuss it at that point. And, you know, I think as Phil and the rest of the NOAA team, we're very appreciative of the board's consideration of this project, and we want to work with the town. And we're not trying to make anything, you know, butting heads. That's not our goal. We want to bring good, affordable housing to Ayer. You know, it's just these real world sort of realities dealing with the seller that NOAA has to face. And we appreciate the board's consideration, and we, you know, want to continue this in a very positive fashion as it has been over the past 6 months.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we need an official
Motion to continue.
motion to continue, but do we have the official agreement?
We're
of
gonna,
no-
we're gonna need a written extension, so Attorney Kiefer can submit that tomorrow.
What's that?
Carly, do you have a form for that? Or if you don't, I can just send you over something.
I have a template, but if you have one more readily available, that would be helpful. So we're going to agree to the extension, or, you know, how are we doing that, Paul? Can you just straighten my?
So we're gonna extend it until January 11th.
Okay. So we're gonna continue so we would need a motion to continue the public hearing until
Correct.
January 11th. And it would be 6 o'clock on Zoom. If someone wants to make that motion on our board.
I'll make
I
it.
motion that we continue till January 11th.
Good try, Phil.
All in
Huge.
favor?
All right.
Cute.
I make a motion to continue the public hearing for an application for a comprehensive permit MGL 40B section 20-23 neighborhood of affordable housing Inc. at 65 Fitchburg Road until January 11th at 6 p.m.
2023, second.
2023.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Jessica Gino, aye.
Mike Gibbons, aye.
John Ellis side.
Come on, Ron, spit it out.
He's mute.
It's a mute point. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Ron
is.
Filippo, aye.
Sam Goodwin said aye.
Okay.
Okay, so like I said, everything updated is on the website for you to review to obviously help ease the meeting on the 11th, for sure.
Well, let me ask, are people able to ask questions in between? So we may be able to have answers even before the 11th. Is that how this might work as well?
It can't be a violation of open meeting law, so.
Can't.
Okay.
But some boards allow, if one member presents a question to Carly that could be passed on to us, we can have a sense. Therefore it's not a meeting of the board.
No
Yeah, I'm
deliberation.
comfortable. I'd rather get the questions earlier and then, you know, to make more use of our time on the 11th. So if individual board members have questions, please get them to me, and then I will get them to Paul and Stephanie.
I think that's a great idea.
Thank you. Yeah. All right.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Happy
everybody.
holidays.
Nice.
Good night. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes for November 16th and November 30th. Anybody got any comments on those?
Look good. Sam, did you write those?
Lovely.
Great job. Loved them.
It's
I make a
amazing.
motion to approve the meeting minutes for November 16th, 2022.
Second,
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Jessica Gino, aye.
Mike Gibbons, aye.
Ron DeFilippo, aye. All aye.
Stereo.
All right,
Sam Goodwin, aye.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for November 30th, 2022.
Second,
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Jessica Gino, aye.
Mike Gibbons, aye.
Ron DeFilippo, aye.
You did it again. Sam Goodwin, aye. All right, that passed. All right, people. Good meeting. Thank you very much. See you on the 11th.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mike Gibbons, aye.
Aye. Cute.
Aye.
Ron DeFilippo, all aye.
That's what I
Yeah,
thought.
yeah.
All right,
Thank
guys.
you.
Happy holidays.
Okay.